Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from OnlinePhotographyTraining.com. Welcome to my video series, Learn Lightroom CC, also known as Lightroom in the Cloud. In our last video, I gave an overview on how to process an image in Lightroom CC. In this episode, I'm going to get a little bit more in depth about post-processing. Specifically, I'm going to introduce to you a tool, the Healing Brush tool. We're also going to talk about profiles and presets, and we're going to introduce the color mixer, more often called the HSL panel. Now, we're going to do it on this image here, and I'm going to probably jump right into post-processing here. And if you look over at the image, you can see over here at the top right-hand corner, there's a little sensor spot there. And if I click on it, you can see we zoomed in a little bit. You also could go down here and click these Fit Fill 1-to-1 there. But if you'd like to zoom in even more to get an idea and look at these sensor spots and search for them, you could hit Command plus if you have a Mac or Control plus if you have a PC. And when you do, you'll zoom in. You could just keep hitting Command or Control plus to keep zooming in. And then we could just drag over to where that sensor spot is. And we'd like to get rid of this using the Healing Brush tool, probably more often called the Spot Removal tool. And you can see it's right here. It's this little band-aid. And if we click on that, you'll see it will open. And you can see there's two different modes, heal and clone. We're going to start out in heal mode. And you're going to find that heal mode will work with most applications, removing sensor spots, removing blemishes on a person's face. You're probably going to want to use heal mode. Clone mode you would use when you want to remove an object from the image. That works best. So if you have a sidewalk that has a beer can on it and you want to remove the beer can, you would clone the beer can out of the image. And I'm going to demonstrate how they work differently in a moment. Now, first of all, we have three attributes to this brush. First of all, the brush size. You could just use this slider here to adjust the brush size. Or you could use the bracket keys on your keyboard. The right bracket key makes it larger, left bracket key smaller. If you have a mouse with a center click wheel, or if you have an Apple Magic Mouse, you could just spin that click wheel or use the just slide your finger on the Apple Magic Mouse and you'll adjust the brush size as well. Now we have a feathering slider, and you can see when I move that, the brush, you can see it's getting like it has an inner circle and outer circle, and you can see how that's moving that inner circle around. Basically, with most applications, you'd probably want to feather quite a bit. What I found is for sensor spots that are in the sky, just feathering at 100 works well. If it is a blemish on a person's face, usually feathering between 40 and 60 works best. Of course, it depends on the blemish, depends on the person. And you could come in and adjust this as you go as well, and I'll show that in a moment. Now, opacity, usually we want to remove the spot completely, so we want 100% opacity. There may be a time where you just want to fade the spot a little bit, and then you just reduce opacity in those instances. Now, this little checkbox, Visualize Spots, if we click on that, it turns the image into this kind of black and white negative. And I'm going to zoom out by hitting Command minus a few times. Again, if you have a PC, you'd zoom out by hitting Control minus. Now you can see it's got this kind of negative and, look. And when you're in this view, this will often help you better see sensor spots on the image. In this case, there's only one up here in the top right-hand corner, so this isn't helping too much, so I'll turn that off. Also, there's this threshold slider when you turn that on, and that just makes it either more sensitive or less sensitive. So you can see when it's really more sensitive, maybe that's a spot there, or maybe that's a bird way off in the distance. Either way, so you could adjust threshold to help you better visualize those spots. Now, as I mentioned, I want to get rid of this sensor spot right here. So I want the center part of that brush just a little bit larger than that spot. So I'm going to just click on it. And when I do, Lightroom will use its algorithms to try to pick a spot in your image that's similar in texture, color, and brightness to replace or to heal that spot. Now I'm going to just zoom in again real quick. And you'll notice when I hover over the image, those appear, these handles. Now, if you don't like where it's sampled, it did a good job, obviously. If you don't like where it's sampled, you could just move this around anywhere you want and get a different spot. Now, as far as opacity is concerned, you can see when I pull that down, you're going to start to see this spot reappear when it's at 0, and then you could push it up. Now, in most cases, as I mentioned, you probably want opacity at 100. Now, you can see that's what Heal does. Well, what exactly is Heal doing? Well, I'm going to zoom back out. Sorry to keep doing this. But I'm going to grab this sample area, and I'm going to put it over the hillside. And then I'll zoom back in. And you can see what it actually did is it took the texture of the hills, or those trees, and put them there. But it really didn't transfer all of the color. On the other hand, if I change the mode from Heal to Clone, you'll see that it just took the exact pixels that were in that area and put them here. And to better demonstrate that, I'll take feathering down to 0. And you can see those are the trees that are down there. Now, if I want to drag around with the tool open, hold the space bar in, and the tool will turn into the little hand key, or the brush will turn into the hand key, and you could better drag around. You can see I'm over this area of trees, and in clone mode it just cloned those trees exactly right there. Now obviously I don't want that, right? So we'll turn feathering up. We're going to change the mode back to Heal. I'm going to zoom back out by hitting Command minus a couple times, and we'll take this and we'll put it somewhere better. So that is a better way to remove that spot when Heal mode. Again, I think Heal mode works best in most situations. Sensor spots, especially from a sky, Heal mode with feathering around 100. Blemishes on a person's face, Heal mode with feathering, usually, it's rough to say, it depends on the person and the blemish, 40 to 60 in there somewhere. And if you have something you need to remove, like you want to totally remove something, like I want to remove these branches coming out of here, I would use clone mode, probably would work best for that. And you would clone in some of the lake over the top of that. Now, one more trick I'm going to show you with the healing brush. If you want to draw a straight line, now there's nothing here that really necessitates that, but let's say you have a power line going through your shot and you want to remove the power line. So you could just click with the left mouse button and draw like that. And you can see then it's going to take a spot over here and replace it. Another way you could do it, I'll undo that, is click once with the mouse button at one end of that line. Then go to the other end of the line and hold the Shift key in and click another time with that mouse button, and it will automatically draw a perfectly straight line. So that gives you a little tip on how to maybe better utilize the healing brush when you have something long in the image that you want to remove. So that's the healing brush. Now let's process this image. We're going to just open up the edit part of the of this develop side by clicking right there. Now I got a bunch of stuff open here. I probably should let's see, close that down, close that down, close that down. All right, now I mentioned in the last video that most often I like to come in and do lens corrections right away. So I'll come in here and I'll click on optics and I'll enable chromatic aberration, and then when I click enable lens corrections, you should see a change in the image. And you can see that it definitely removed some vignetting around the edges and took some of that distortion out. And you can see it found the lens. So I'm good to go. So optics are fine. Now, if you have any aftermarket profiles or presets in Lightroom Classic CC, they should have copied over into the desktop version of Lightroom CC. On the mobile version of Lightroom CC, at least in my experience with the iOS versions, the aftermarket profiles and presets don't come over for some reason. I'm not sure why. But if we click here, you'll see at the top, first of all, it says Adobe Color. That's a profile, and that's the default profile that you'll have for your image. If you click on that, you can see there's some more profiles. And if you just hover over them, you'll get a preview of that profile applied to your image. So Adobe Landscape, Adobe Portrait, Adobe Standard, Adobe Vivid, and Adobe Monochrome. Now, if you'd like to browse all your profiles, you'd open the profile browser, and you could do that by clicking right there, or right here to the right, you'll see this group of 4 bricks. If you click on that, you'll open up the profile browser, and again, we have these little views of all those Adobe profiles. Now, I mentioned again that if you had aftermarket ones, those will be brought over into the desktop version of Lightroom CC, and you can see the ones I sell are here. There's Morganti landscape profiles. And if we click on that, you can see there's a bunch of different landscape profiles here. There's Kodachrome 25. There's lower contrast, bright and colorful. There's rich and warm. There's sunrise, sunset, and so on. So there's a crazy one right there, orange and pink. Now, it's my strong recommendation, again, that you apply a profile or a preset early in your processing workflow, because as you could see, it will change your image greatly, especially the presets. Hopefully the preset, when you click on one of those, and we'll do that in a minute, that will finish your image, hopefully. Usually though, with a preset, it gets you close to being done, and you just have to do some minor touch-ups. Profiles, on the other hand, they kind of give your image a whole different kind of color profile and contrast profile, and then you would process it from that point on. So that's why you should do profiles and or presets early. Different reasons why you should do each early, but do them early in your processing. Now, for this demonstration, I'm just going to use the default Adobe color profile. And again, to close down the profile browser, just click on back. Now, the presets are located way down here, and you could click on that, and you could see then the preset browser opens up, and there's all the presets that come with Lightroom. And again, if you have any aftermarket ones, like if you happen to own my Morganti landscape presets, again, if you just hover over the name, you'll get a preview of that preset applied to your image. There's black and white high detail in the landscape preset. Another one I like is Rolling Pastures. Yeah, that one I like. See how that is pretty much a finished image right there. And that's why presets will get you done, hopefully. You could click a preset and you're finished processing. Maybe you'll have to do some minor touch-ups with light to make it better fit your image. But usually the preset will get you done. The profile, on the other hand, you do early on, and then you process off the profile. And I'm not going to use any of the presets. I just wanted to demo that to you, how you would turn or use a preset. And in a future episode, I'll show you how to create a preset and a profile. Well, profiles are a little different, but I'll show you how to create a preset. Now, I'm going to process this image. I'm going to go right to the light tab here, and I'm going to go to shadows right away. And I'm going to open up shadows. I'm just going to eyeball the image and move the shadow slider to the right. And I'm going to move the highlights shadow to the left, and I'm doing that just until I see some more of the detail come in this brightest parts. And that's the way I do it. Everyone is a little different. I'm going to add a little contrast, move the contrast slider to the right, and I'm going to get a white and black point. And I'm going to do it by holding in the Option key on my keyboard. That's because I have a Mac. If you have a PC, you'd hold in the Alt key. Click on the white slider, and when you do and you start to slide it, you'll see the image will turn black. And what I like to do is keep moving it to the right until I see some colors bleed through. And you can see I got some blue, a tiny bit of green, and white coming through. Then what I'll do is I'll back it off until all that goes away. What that those colors represent are the individual color channels clipping. So I'm clipping blue, I'm clipping a tiny bit of green, and where that white is, I'm clipping red, green, and blue. Now, if you're clipping a color channel, that means you won't have any detail in that clipped area. It's going to be just totally white, basically. So what we want to do is just back that off. In my case, this is the way I do it. so that there's no clipping of whites at all. It's just the way I like to do it. So there, to me, is a good white point. Now let's see a before and after of what we've done so far. I hit the backslash key on my keyboard, hold it in, there's before, let go, there's after. You also could go down here in this little icon in the bottom right hand corner, click on that and hold that in, there's before, and there's after. Now I want to get that black point. And similarly, I'm going to hold in the Option key. Again, if you have a PC, you'd hold in the Alt key. Click on that, and as soon as I start moving it to the left, the screen turns white in this case. And you can see I'm already clipping green down there, and you can see there's a little black. Where it's black, I'm clipping all three channels, red, green, and blue. So personally, I like to clip the blacks a little bit. To me, that adds a little more tonal depth to my image. That's the way I like to do it. Everyone's different. Maybe you won't want to clip them at all. Maybe you'd clip them both a little bit. And maybe you'd reverse it. You'd like to clip your whites a little, but not clip your blacks at all. So I'm going to move it right about there, and I think that looks pretty good. So I'm done with this light section. I'm not going to do anything with tone curve in this video. We're going to save that for our next video. So I'm going to close that down. We're going to open up this color section, and I'm going to close that down for now. Now, in our next video also, I'm going to go in depth about white balance, and we're going to talk about how you would adjust white balance on an image. For this image, I just want to come in here and turn saturation up a little bit. Now, I mentioned in our last video the difference between vibrance and saturation. Two things. Saturation will oversaturate colors, so it affects every pixel in the image. If you take saturation all the way down, it's going to take the color out of every single pixel. So it affects every single pixel, every single color, and it will oversaturate. If something's near saturation, it's going to oversaturate it. Vibrance, on the other hand, does not affect every single pixel. So you can see as I pull it down, you can still see we still have some color in there. And it specifically doesn't affect orange and red quite as much. And vibrance is a better choice if you have a person in the shot. That way it won't affect their skin tones as adversely as saturation might. So that's the difference between those two sliders. Now I mentioned I want to show you color mix. And if we click on this little icon that's to the right of color, we'll open up this color mixer. Now in Lightroom Classic CC, this is the HSL panel. It's the same exact thing. And as we look at it here, this is one view of it. You can see that it has adjust and it has color in this drop down. You can see there's a bunch of colors there: red, orange, yellow, green, aqua, blue, purple, and magenta, going left to right. And then if you're clicked on one of those colors, for instance, I'm on red, I could adjust the hue of red. Here, for a better demonstration, why don't I click on blue? And if I'm clicked on blue, I could adjust the hue of blue. You can see how that's affecting the sky. Double click on the slider to reset it, or I could adjust the saturation of blue with that slider, or the luminance of blue, which is the brightness or darkness of blue, with that slider. Now, so you could do those for all those different colors. This is the one view, and this is actually the view I prefer to use. If you don't like this view, there's others. You could just click on hue directly, and then you'll have all those individual sliders there, and you could adjust the hue for all these colors at once, basically. So red, orange, yellow, whatever. Below that is saturation. Then you could come in here and adjust the saturation for all those colors. Below that is luminance. Then you could come in and adjust the luminance for all those different colors. Now, to me, that's a little more work. I got to keep going to this drop down because I often will bounce between saturation and luminance for a specific color. So to me, that's a lot more work. So I prefer to be up here right where it says color. Now, if I gotta apologize if my voice is lowering in and out, or if it seems like I'm moving something around. We got a kitten recently, and the kitten keeps jumping on my lap. So I keep trying to and he keeps trying to get on my desk. So I keep trying to take the kitten down while I'm talking and put him on the ground. So my apologies. So with that out of the way, and that disclaimer, let's adjust this image with the color mixer. Now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on orange here, and and I want to increase the saturation orange. You can see obviously this was a fall day and there's some colorful trees on that hill. So I could take it all the way down and you can see the trees that have more orange in them when saturation is all the way down are now gray. Well, I don't want that. I just want to turn it up so they're more saturated. And I'm probably going to take luminance up a little bit so they're a little bit brighter. Then I think what I'll do is I'll go click on green and I'm going to take luminance of green down. So I'm just trying to get a little more tonal depth in the hillside. So I'm making whatever's green a little darker, whatever orange a little more saturated and a little brighter. And maybe we'll click on yellow as well. And I'll see, make that a little more saturated and that a little brighter as well. So I could see where I stand with the color mixer by this little on-off switch here. So if I click this off, there's before and there's after. Before, after. So you can see I think I added a little more tonal depth. And what I mean by that, if you look like right here in the grass, it's a little obvious, like right there when I turn it off. Before, after. So you can see how it adds this kind of nice tonal depth to the image, in my opinion. Now I want to go to the sky and I want to make the sky a little darker. So I'm going to click on the blue button right there. And then I'm going to go to luminance and I'm going to pull that down. So I'm making the blue sky a little darker, just a little bit. It's already pretty dark as it is. And so there's before, after. That's my adjustment using the color mixer. And again, you could have done all these things individually with saturation. You see how the orange is turned up, yellow's turned up a little bit on saturation. If I go to luminance, you can see how green is turned down and blue is turned down a little bit in luminance. And I didn't adjust the hue for any of those. The hue was fine. I want it natural. I didn't want to change the hue. So I'm done with the color section, and that's how you would use the color mixer. And again, in the Lightroom Classic CC, that's called the HSL panel. Same thing. Now, to finish off the image very quickly, and we'll get into more detail into these functions in future videos, but I will probably go to this detail. You can see it's already got sharpening default at 40. I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not going to do anything else there. I am going to go to effects though, and I'm going to take clarity and bring clarity up to quite a bit, maybe 22. Then I'm going to go to the vignette, and I'm going to give it a dark vignette. If I go to the right, I'd get a white vignette. So I want a black vignette. So I'm going to move this to left. Not super heavy. I don't like those big heavy ones. Just a tiny bit. The darker vignette around the edges, it helps tease your viewer's eyes more towards the middle of the image, so they stay on the image. They don't drift off the image with their eyes. So that's what that does. So I would consider this image done. And I'm going to hit the backslash key. There's before, and there's after, and there's before, and there's after. So that's it for this episode. In our next episode, we're going to again process a different image. And in that episode, I'm going to show you the curves or tone curve a little more in depth there. And maybe we'll get into a little more in depth about something else down here as well. Maybe introduce another tool as well. Maybe the graduated filter in that, or in here they call it the linear gradient in Lightroom CC. Maybe we'll introduce that in our next video as well. Thank you everyone for watching my video series, Learn Lightroom CC. If you could do me a favor and like and share the video and subscribe to my YouTube channel, I'd really appreciate that as well. Also, in the description below this video will be a link to my website. Come visit my website, onlinephotographytraining.com. There you'll find all kinds of free photography how-to articles and videos. I'll talk to you guys soon.